So the Witch Queen, it's got a pretty good campaign. Lots of jumping puzzles. I like jumping puzzles, except not the jumping bit. Why, you ask? I honestly can't tell you. It's kind of become a strange habit of mine. In fact, ever since that fateful Presage video almost 10 months ago, you can quite often find me in public missions brutally slamming my head into a wall until I get past it. There is no obstacle too great when it comes to my unique Destiny skill set. So let's put it to the test, shall we? Can I beat Destiny 2 Witch Queen without jumping? We shall see. Okay, so jumping right in. Wait, never mind. We've got the Arrivals mission.
In times of crisis, people look to their leaders for answers.
Whoa, cool cutscene. I didn't encounter any issues leading up to the first firefight, as most of it was just flat ground. After taking out some Cabal, I picked up my first heavy object and bopped some Scions in the face with it. These heavy objects inhibit your jump, which would be bad for a normal player, but I, being the master non-jumper that I am, anticipated this, and decided to beat the entire campaign without jumping just to spite these objects. I love how it gives you a debuff at the side too. The game really had to let you know that the reason you can't jump is because you're carrying a heavy object. Who would have thought? Heavy object rant over. After getting launched into the next area, I stabbed some gamers with my pointy stick and captured a plate before depositing 2 more heavy objects. Bungie's definitely going to overuse this mechanic in the next year for seasonal content, I can already tell. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the Lightfall raid is just entirely based around heavy objects. And now finally, in the third semi-encounter, I was faced with my first challenge. 3 guesses as to what mechanic this room features. Basically, you've got to take these fusion cells and deposit them into the tubes on the platform above. But, you kind of have to jump to get up there. This is where the fun begins. Allow me to introduce my good friend, the Icarus Dash. Now, how exactly will a horizontal dash help me to get up a platform, I hear you ask? Well, it's quite simple, actually. Icarus Dash, as famously stated in Destiny lore, allows a Guardian to ascend almost vertical walls. Luckily for us, this pillar here is one such almost vertical wall. Unluckily for us, my Icarus Dash got a heavy nerf back in Season of the Lost, meaning I have to wait for a grenade. Now, this doesn't seem like a big deal, but I had to wait for rather a lot of grenades throughout the entire run. You'll see why in a bit. Making my way into the depths of the Cabal base, I had to cross a pit of deadly machinery. Now, time to introduce the second component of this run, Eager Edge. Now, I didn't have this little way of flinging myself about back in the Presage day, so horizontal gaps have gotten a whole lot easier to cross since then. It just so happens that these little gaps in the machinery room are just wide enough for me to Eager Edge across, which was very nice. The first actual encounter of the campaign was trivially easy, until I had to claim my rewards, that is. Why would Bungie decide to put the chests on top of a platform? Aren't they aware of the thriving Destiny 2 player base that play without jumping? Which consists of me and Glad, apparently, from 3 years ago? Unbelievable. Instead, I took a ride on these spinning things that brought me right up to the platform. First encounter complete. Cool. When ascending the elevator, I got knocked backwards instead of towards the exit, so I panicked a bit before realising I could just take another elevator upwards. I'm really not as smart as I sound sometimes. After murdering the Cabal High Command, I hijacked the cannon and blasted right onto Sarathun's ship.
To wait for a moment when her intentions are clear, we would wait forever.
Oh look, foreshadowing. I navigated through the halls of the ship with no real issues, until I turned this corner. That's rather unfortunate. Meet the third member of the Holy Trinity of jumpless movement, stasis grenades. By throwing a grenade at your feet, your Guardian gets bounced up by a very small amount. It's not enough to make most jumps on its own, but it can sometimes give you the slight boost at the end to get you onto a platform. Unless of course you're faced with a series of very small jumps where Icarus Dash can't be used, and you have to wait for a stasis grenade. I mean, Bungie wouldn't be that cruel to us jumpless players, surely? Thank you, Bungie. Anyways, for the time being, one stasis grenade never hurt anyone, except ludicrous amounts of Hive in the following room. Speaking of the following room, I was tasked with picking up 5 tributes from powerful enemies. I got another jump scare when I killed the second knight on top of this ledge, just to find there was no way to get up to it. Thankfully, the moat despawned. The tribute, rather. Now, onwards to the next room. You know how I said I was going to have to wait for a lot of grenades in this run? This is one of the areas that forces me to do just that. I could dodge having to use a grenade for the first jump by using a statue in the middle of the room, but I had no such luck for the next 3 jumps. But at least I was almost at the top of the room. I just had to make one last jump. How on earth am I going to do this? My first strategy involved using yet another stasis grenade. I threw it at my feet and realised I was nowhere near high enough. Now, if Presage's taught me anything, it's that you should always observe your surroundings. You might just happen to find a lower hanging lamp to the far left of the passageway, for example. All I would have to do to get onto this ramp was to use a nade, swing with eager edge, and use both my... Oh, well that's quite unfortunate. There was seemingly no way to get over to the lower chandelier, let alone to get on top of the higher one in front of me. It would appear that my run ends here. There wasn't any way of combining my toolset in a way to make this jump possible. So was this the end? Was this all my run had come to? Failing on the first mission? With only 7 minutes of video length? No. There is a wildcard that I haven't yet mentioned. So you know stasis grenades. What's better than one stasis grenade? 2 stasis grenades. And what's better than 2 stasis grenades? 8 stasis grenades. Enter Salvation's Grip. Using the crystals produced by a fully charged shot, it would be possible to make my way slowly along the wall until I reached the chandelier. The first attempt didn't go too well, neither did the second, and I soon had to restart the mission to gain more heavy ammo.
In times of crisis.
Yes, Ikora, I'm aware. See, the issue with resetting was that I had to wait for all the stasis grenades again, which made this entire process take ridiculously long. My next few attempts were better, but I quickly ran out of charges again. Time for another reset.
In times of crisis.
Attempt 1, attempt 2, attempt 3. Yes, finally. That only took 40 minutes. Now time for the rest of the mission. After making it to the chandelier, all I had to do was wait for another grenade to get onto the platform above. The rest of the mission, however, was relatively simple. So time to move on to the second, where my skills would really be pushed to their absolute limits. This mission opens up with a view of the luscious gardens of Savathun's throne world, a perfectly good place to massacre some Hive. After clearing the area, I encountered my first deep sight jumping puzzle. Now you see, deep sight is a timed buff, and you know what takes incredibly long to recharge? Stasis grenades. Now upon first glance there really wasn't any clear way to get up to the next area, but stepping back from the platforms for a moment revealed another path. In order to get up the wall, I bounced onto some spherical plant things with grenades, launched myself up into the air and got onto the most minuscule of ledges here. My guardian's toes must be incredibly strong. From here I could use a grenade to get up to the rest of the wall. The game gave me another heart attack when I realised I couldn't progress, but it was fixed by backtracking to the previous marker. Also, I very almost missed this jump here, which would have been tragic. Further on in the mission, I was presented with my second deep sight challenge. Now, normally you have to activate a deep sight at the bottom of this room and climb up to the door above. Up is the problem. So I had to make sure that I maintained my height from the start of the room by switching to another useful exotic for this challenge, the fabled Wings of Sacred Dawn. Now how these work is if you jump, or more importantly fall, and ADS in the air, the wings will allow you to glide for a short duration. You can abuse this by repeatedly ADSing in midair until you float to the floor. In order to pass this room, I used the wings to glide through this archway and eager edge to the left, barely making it onto the hand of this creepy alien looking thing. I then used a series of stasis grenades and I was clear of the first dark room. The second dark room was where things got interesting, however. I yet again encountered a deep sight focus spot, but unlike the first 2 times, I actually had to pay attention to the mission's mechanics instead of ignoring them, like people in practically every LFG raid ever. The next room has absolutely no ledges to cross whatsoever. It's a really poorly designed room from an architectural standpoint. Why are there doors out into a pit if there's no way to cross it, aside from using deep sight? The Hive are evidently much better at mechanics than your average LFG player. Regardless of this room's faults, I still had to cross it. The issue, however, is that the buff only lasts for 30 seconds. Within the room, there are 2 jumps that require a stasis grenade. Stasis grenades take a full minute to recharge, making using 2 of them impossible. So I investigated the room a little bit more, and after coming to the conclusion that there was no hidden ledges to stand on, turned to my saviour yet again, the Salvation's Grip. I could use a stasis grenade to the first room, swap to Icarus to get onto the second platform, and then place the Salvation's shot in a precise point on the wall, allowing me to dash up it and get into the next area. The rest of this exceptionally short mission was very smooth sailing. I defended a plate, classic Destiny filler mechanic, fought some Hive, and then fought some more Hive. After encountering a small, frail bird, the mission came to a close. The first significant area of difficulty in this mission was the jumping puzzle after the first encounter, and by difficulty I mean using a plethora of stasis grenades, and by a plethora I mean absolute metric tons. Seriously, at least 50% of this mission was spent using grenades. That's 10 minutes of my life that I will never get back. A few grenades I used at the start of this dark section, but the majority of the time spent waiting occurred after the walker in the following area. I'm having so much fun. I could be studying for my exams right now, but instead I choose to do this. Ah well, exams are temporary, Destiny 2 is forever. After finally making up the last of the steps, I cleared up some ads, swung over to the pit, and fell into the room leading to the boss encounter, in which the boss immediately ran away, clearly terrified of my ability to beat his entire army without even leaving the ground. There was one final challenge in this mission, which thankfully didn't involve grenades. My good friend Deepsight made its return, with the path forward quite clearly impossible. Looking to my left, I found nothing of use. Looking to my right, I spotted the exit, so I equipped Wings of Sacred Dawn and floated gracefully towards the exit. However, the squad had anticipated my strategy and positioned a trap directly in my path. Luckily though, this trap could be escaped with a single Icarus dash, but not without taking a quick death moments after. Avoiding this trap, I made it over to the final part of the mission. Plot twist, the boss is back, and this time he's prepared for my arrival by doing the exact same thing he did in the previous encounter, hiding crystals that make him vulnerable in really difficult to find places, such as behind a wall. I actually defeated the boss this time, and inevitably beat the mission. I absolutely love this mission, it's so cool. Especially the part where I spend another half an hour waiting for stasis grenades. The mission starts off pretty cold, but eventually warms up once you get past the Goliath tanks that can kill you in one hit regardless of being on legend mode or not. The way forward once inside the pyramid is blocked by a permanent Cabal force field, a very practical solution for Cabal that wish to enter and exit the pyramid in large quantities. Instead I take a quick detour through some scary passageways before encountering a raising platform. Unfortunately a stasis grenade would have been no use here, as the platform rises above the grenade's height, so I had to think of another solution. How was I going to get up? I'm glad you asked. Well, just sprinting towards it yielded no result, but 2 eager-edged sword swings would work instead. This allowed me to get onto the platform before it even began moving upwards. I dashed into this lane, crawled through the hole, and dropped into the second room. Now since the last mission, I was positively sick of grenades, so instead of taking the normal path of jumping up here, then here, I decided to go exploring a little. I landed on top of the statue and Icarus dashed up the wall. Turns out the walls in this mission are just the right height to allow me to get up them in this fashion. Following a few more jumps, I made it to the area with the Scorpius turret and eliminated the Cabal. In the following room, I stabbed a couple more gamers and disabled a jamming device, because as we all know, an ancient life-giving power such as the darkness can easily be overpowered by some rusty Cabal tech. A few rooms later, I encountered 1 grenade jump, 2 grenade jumps, and seemingly a 3rd grenade jump. I say seemingly because of something called foreshadowing. You know that wall from the second room of the pyramid? There's another wall with the exact same angle before the 3rd jump. I dashed up the wall and swung over to the platform, gaining far more height than I would have with a grenade. I continued onwards for about 5 meters before being hit with another 2 grenade jumps. Great. There's a pretty clear habit of Bungie's after an encounter to put the chests on a raised platform of some kind. In the instance of the second proper encounter of this mission, the chest is placed on this bridge, which means a grenade. You know what, I'm just going to copy paste that voice clip for every subsequent grenade in the next room. After watching the pyramid knock this Cabal into the abyss, I skipped a platform, then had to get onto the bridge, which means a grenade. Unless... No, Bungie thought of that. Once on the bridge, I got onto another platform, which means a grenade. Then another, which means a grenade. Then onto a bridge, which doesn't need a grenade, but I still used one anyway. There were some platforms at the side of the next room. What a shame I didn't have to use a grenade to get up them. Instead, I ran to the back of the room and ascended to the boss encounter. Upon starting, The soundtrack, though. In short, this Cabal wants to destroy this statue because of his insatiable thirst for death, violence, and destruction. Also because they want to find trinkets of darkness, and the best way to find such trinkets, as everyone I'm sure is aware, is to blow everything up. Throughout this fight, Cabal ships regularly drop a single Cabal soldier to do battle against me, which made the mission just so difficult. After a few phases, I defeated the boss and claimed my prize. All I needed to do now was hop onto the pedestal. Oh, that's not good at all. The final objective, commune with darkness. Not even a super was going to save me here. Unfortunately, this was where my run ends for now. I couldn't find a solution to this problem no matter how hard I tried. Every single thing I've used to solve problems before is prevented during this final part of the mission, which makes getting up to the platform to commune completely impossible. But I'll be attempting the second half of the campaign in another video, so feel free to stick around for that. And by that I mean subscribe. Do it.